In North America, there are approximately 4 million professional truck drivers who ensure goods arrive at their destination. Yet, even with millions employed, fleets remain short by tens of thousands of drivers as demand for freight rises. Within such a massive industry, subject to labor, cost, volatility pressures, how exactly does one sustain and grow a specialized trucking operation wherein quality, reliability, and people management are strategic differentiators? Welcome to Brungart Law's Lanyap, where we provide a little extra perspective through conversations. I'm Maurice Brungart, your host. I enjoy engaging with experienced, knowledgeable, and passionate individuals for the opportunity it affords to enrich our understanding of the world through their eyes. The more we learn, the more likely we can become better versions of ourselves, guide others towards the same, and perhaps have a little fun along the way. Today's guest is Mr. Ghislain Arsenault, President and CEO of Truck and Roll, a Canadian company leading in live entertainment transport in North America. Mr. Arsenault has served as an entrepreneurship and business strategy coach at Concordia's John Molson School of Business, working with the John Molson Competition Committee to prepare teams for national and international case competitions. Welcome to the program, Mr. Arsenault.
Thanks for having me.
Well, this again is a lucky treat for me as always, having a variety of guests, and you definitely are a unique individual. So why don't you go ahead and tell us about your journey, starting with how you got involved in trucking and the entertainment world?
Well, it's pretty much like many people started in a family business. My dad had a trucking company, started a trucking company in 1957, and I was born pretty much to a family of, trucking. He was a mover. He started Atlas Van Line in Canada. Atlas is very well known across North America. So my dad was a mover, did residential move, office move, delivering furniture. So ever since I was young, I was, pretty much involved. My mom was in the business. My dad was in business. The whole four kids of the family worked in the business at some point. So from the age of 14 on, at 14, I was a helper. And then at 16, I was driving trucks.
For context, where was your family's trucking business at this
All in
time?
Montreal. I
All
was
in Montreal. Okay.
born and raised in Montreal, but like anything with moving, it brings you to other places. We do move everywhere in North America, overseas. So I got to, I would say the bug for, transportation and trucking very young in my life. Fun facts though, like it was a family business, and my mom, like women were in the 50s and 60s, didn't have the opportunity to go to school. She loved school. And she pretty much ran the business. Everybody thought it was my dad, but it was my mom. She was like the brain of the family. Well, it's true. And my mom wanted to make sure that, she paid for all of education, the four kids. And she said, I only ask you for one thing. Please do not ever work in trucking or transportation. So I kind of failed her right from the beginning, but I think she would be proud of, what I've did in the last 40 years. So by the age, like I say, 16, I'm driving trucks. It's my summer job. What I never realized, it was the best training ever if you're an athlete. I played baseball and hockey when I was young, and doing moving, it's like going to the gym every day. So I was always in good shape because of my part-time job.
Yeah.
And I did that for many years. I went to school, went to Concordia, like you said, but I finished my school at Arizona State in advertising. So
Okay.
my background technically is advertising. The only problem, if you go back 1984, there's no like, how do you get a job from Tempe, Arizona to Montreal in advertising? So I have a degree, but I don't have a job. So I made a deal with my dad and said, hey, can I get a job for the summer until I get a real job in advertising? And he says, sure. He says, so I'll put you in sales. You speak English, because my dad didn't speak much English. So he said, you do all the, overseas English, U.S. customer, and for the summer, and by the fall I should get a job. Well, I was there. I stayed with my dad for 10 years. So that part-time job became a 10-year, adventure, which I learned a lot. And sometimes, like, whether it's a part-time job, whether it's a family business, all those little things that you accumulate with those years with your part-time job. So the good part, I was not, really thinking of starting my business when I was young, but I learned about, sales with my dad I learned about operation and admin with my mom, but HR because we had, something like, over 50 employees. So you learn quick. And when you're 21, 22, and you put in a situation, I always say the easiest thing on a family business is get the job. Then you have to be better and work harder than everybody else to prove yourself. And I pretty much learned a lot. And the good story is like, by, I would say by the 5 or 6 year I was with him, the company grew. We were like doing really well. And then you're a 26-year-old, you think you know everything, you want to take over the world. Two of my friends from school were now working for with my dad. So we had this three guys that, we had fun and we're making money. So we came to my dad and said, hey, we wanna buy the company, which means nothing when you're 26-year-olds. Like, what do you mean you buy the company? First, when you're young, the things you don't learn at school was like, how much is the company worth? Like, I really, when you're young, you don't know what a company is worth. You don't understand EBITDA. You don't understand multiples. You don't understand nothing. Plus, the beauty of working for your dad is you don't get paid much. So I was spoiled. I had a lot of benefit, but I had no money. So how the hell was I supposed to buy a company with no money and no financing? Unfortunately, my dad's accountant did not see us, or my dad didn't see us as a good thing. He saw the first thing my dad would think is like, God, you're going to buy me and kick me out, which was the last thing we want to do. I didn't want to kick my dad out. He was the best person I knew and hardest worker I've ever been with. But in his mind, when you don't talk, when you don't ask the right question, when you don't have the right people around you, which in this case would have been his accountant, would have said, hey guys, you're young, you're broke, you have talent, you have potential. Here's how it's going to work. We're going to sell you 25% of the company, and with the dividend, well, you get to pay that back. And when you're done with that in about 3 or 4 years, then we'll talk again. Well, unfortunately, the accountant pretty much shut us down. My friends left to go to bigger, great career, and I stayed a couple of years and left because this accountant took the fun out of my job, which was building something with my friends. It's a team. I'm a team guy. I love working as a team. So unfortunately, I left my dad, to go work in advertising. And, it was the end of my career with my dad. And fortunately, also like 10 years later, his company closed. So that was really, really hard. There was a couple of tough Christmas after I left. Which I use sometimes to tell people when I teach at Concordia, all the things that, I wish I'd known, I wish I'd said better. I wish sometimes asking the right question or explaining people what you want to do saves a lot of aggravation. Turned out okay with me, turned out okay with my dad. I think he had a good retirement, he was able to, he had a building, real estate, so it was okay. But what he built, it doesn't exist anymore, and that's pretty much, that's pretty sad. I think I wish his company would still be around.
At that time, did this create a slight tension with your father?
Oh yeah, father and mother, family,
Okay.
the whole family, because I'm the oldest, so I was supposed to be the one, to take over and continue the company, and I had the passion, I had the tools. I have 10 years almost in the books, so yeah, it was, and it didn't make sense. I mean, when I left, I really left because, I had no more fun. And it doesn't matter how much money you make, doesn't matter, how great your boss is if you don't have fun at one point. And I said, I went back to say, hey, I want to work in advertising, which that was a big mistake, man. I was like, it's hard. By then I was like 30. I was 32. I had no experience. Married, 2 kids, one on the way. You start at the bottom again. That was. When I look back, it was not very smart. But I always wanted to do. So I did the advertising for about 6 months, a year, and then all my friends when I left. One thing I didn't tell you is like when I worked for my dad. My dad did a lot of the arts in Montreal, which means we have civic center. Like every city has a civic center, which you have the opera, the ballet, the theater. So we used to move sets on the weekend. and I was at the Civic Center every weekend loading trucks, which, like I said, it's very it's not it looks very glamorous to be entertainment, but think about it. You work every weekend almost forever. So that's, you really have to be passionate to work every weekend because most people want to have a life on the weekend. So when I left, my dad decided that he also didn't want to, I was the one working on the weekend. So the guy at the Civic Center, the opera, start calling me, say, "Gee, your dad doesn't want to do this anymore. Why don't you do it?" Well, so I don't do trucking anymore. I'm into advertising, and he pretty much told me to shut up and listen. He said, "I really, that's what friends do to you." It's like, yeah, right. You're not an advertiser. You're a trucker. So get me 2 trucks this weekend, 11 o'clock at the Civic Center, and we're moving the set. And I said, okay. So now I had 2 jobs. So I was doing advertising during the week, and I was doing theater and opera on the weekend. And I did that for about 2 years. And 2 years of doing advertising or marketing, my advertising moved into marketing. I was more like a marketing person than advertising. I know.
I take it when you got these first few jobs at that time, you still hadn't even established a formal company entity like in an LLC or anything. You just
I don't
did.
even have a name. I don't even have a name.
Okay.
I'm just sending a bill with no name on it, and they're paying me. And it became clear though. It's like I was making, I don't know, I was making, seriously, I was making no money. If I was making back then, you know, $500 a week, in advertising in the 80s or early 90s, that was good. And then one day I did the first time the opera, the ballet, my first tour was a ballet. I went on tour for a month. It took me about 5 minutes to do the job. You need a truck, a trailer, a driver, a credit card. I did that. So it was my first touch with brokerage. Um, the toughest thing was insurance. I had to find a way to insure the truck. But I made $2,000 in about 5, 10 minutes. I'm like, wow, there's something in here. You know, my knowledge of the industry, my knowledge of knowing all my friends were truck drivers. So, there's a demand, and I can supply truck and driver and make money and just tell people this is what they. So that was my first taste of a tour, was a ballet tour in early 90s. And back then there was no such company in Canada. Like there was no trucking. There was big one in the US. Back then the big one, there was a few, there was 3 or 4 big one in the US, but there was none in Canada. And it was
And by
like
that you mean like a specialized trucking company. Yeah.
specialized company in the arts,
Okay.
you know, and they're still there. It's the same one. They're still there in the US. Um, so I started doing that because there was no need. And people say, well, you should start a trucking company for the arts. There's none. And if you know numbers, I would say, yeah, I could show you the number why there's none. There's not enough demand for one company to do that all year. Trucks are expensive. Trailers are expensive. So in order to build a fleet, you need contracts, and you guys, go out 2 days a month. It's not enough. So that was pretty much, but I started doing it, like I would say part-time and a few tours. Then it became, I was making enough money to basically pretty much have a truck and a trailer, like a few trailers. So I was ready when people would call. I would have the bars, I would have the straps, I would have the ramps, because rock and roll is all about, it's all on wheels. So you need a ramp. So I would have the ramp ready for them. So everything that pretty much needed to be a rock and roll guy, I was building myself slowly. So that was like the first couple of years. And then pretty much in or I would say early to 96, this is where Rene Angelil, Celine Dion's manager, gave me a call. He says, listen, we're going to take Celine for the US for the first time. We're doing our first tour. And we hear that, you're the only one around here that knows about that. Would you like to do a quote? And I'm like, okay, this is not a one tour ballet for a month. This is, Celine Dion, which in Quebec was already well known. Mind you, she was the beginning of her career. She was starting to sing in English. And so it was 3 trucks. It was about 6 weeks on the road. And one thing, like anything else, the good thing about you know, what I've learned with my family business is I could do budget. Everything's about budget. If you know numbers, trucking is not complicated. It's a very basic commodity. You've got your labor, you've got your truck, you've got your fuel, you've got your maintenance, you've got your insurance, you've got your tolls. Put all that together, a little profit at the bottom, and you get your price. Very simple. There's no R&D. There's no plus I have no employees. So my costs are really, really low. My overhead is almost nothing except me and my kids, my family. So I see it as an opportunity. And, in marketing, sometimes you have what you call in retail a loss leader, which means you'll drop the price of an item to get
Yes.
people to sell more. Well, that can apply to any business, I think.
Yes.
Especially in the beginning, because I had no brand. And that's pretty much about the same time also that I thought of the name Truck and Roll. I was driving on a highway and I said I should do trucking for a rock and roll band. It's very simple. You think about it, trucking roll, truck and
Yeah.
roll. And I'm like, and then I went online and nobody had that. Nobody has ever put that together. So incorporated the name, and then people thought it was cute. And then I got the shirt, the t-shirt, the logo.
Yeah.
And also you create a brand. This is where I started building the brand. Was that name, because I could have been Acme Trucking, like the Roadrunner, but Acme doesn't excite people as much as Truck and Roll, because people like the word truck and roll or rock and roll, something like that. So that was the beginning of something a little fun, which is funny enough, the advertising thing that I wanted to do. Well, I kind of did when I became, like, the name Truck and Roll came. So anyway, I put the quote together, and I know this could be special, but so I put the quote together. I send them the quote. They call me back. They say, okay, well, thank you. And it says, are you sure about your price? And I'm like, yeah, I know that my price is what I want to charge you. But I'll be honest with you. I said, I've never done a tour. To do a couple of shows on a weekend here and there is one thing. To go 6 weeks on the road with, an international talent, I've never done it. Well, they pretty much, Renee and this production said, well, at that price, we'll teach you. So it was talk about honesty and transparency. But if you have the passion, and you could see that I was passionate about doing that, and transparency, if I would have gone there, it's like, I've done this, I've done that. Right from the beginning, they watch you and they say, see what he can do. But by saying I didn't know what I was doing, they said, wow, we could tell him how we want things to be done. He'll do it right away. So my demeanor became almost like, how do you say it? It became something good for them, because it said, instead of dealing somebody that is going to do it his way, we can teach him to do it our way. And that created something very special in the beginning. It created a bond between production and us, because we didn't come in and say, hey, this is how it's going to be done. Because for the first time, they had a local company, Canadian company, that was willing to learn and do it their way. And that created something really special from the beginning. We go on the road and everything goes well, and then less than a year later, the Titanic song came out, My Heart Will Go On with Celine, and that just that was insane. I think whether it's the music business or the movie business, if you're part of a crew or a team that their movie or song goes number one, it changes your life. And that's what happened with that. That after that song, the first tour was 3 trucks. The second tour was 22 trucks.
Wow.
From one song.
Wow.
That changes your life. And now I needed like $2 million to buy trucks. But she was stuck on top of the world. It was easy to get financing. It was easy to, everybody wanted to be part of that. It was a beautiful moment in time when that song, and we had brand new trucks, and we'd go in the city, people had no idea we're like the rookie of the year that has a shiny new toy because all the trucks are new. And then people start calling us, which is a beautiful thing, because there's a big difference if I call you for work and if you call me.
Yes.
It changes and that was the beginning of something very beautiful.
Well, it sounds very much like serendipity. One, the opportunity came to you, but also the confluence of events, who your customer was, right?
Yeah.
And, they're now starting to break out of the Canadian market. And they're also, from what I'm gathering here, at that time, a source of cultural pride for Canada. And you're tied to that. And then all of a sudden, it explodes and everybody else, yeah, they want to be able to support you, not just because they see also a rewarding financial opportunity for them, your lenders, but it's also, hey, it's Celine Dion, a symbol for Canada. Or am I wrong?
No, you're right, and the good story about that is that we're doing the Celine Dion tour. We just finished it, and a friend of mine knows somebody who works at Cirque du Soleil. Everybody knows Cirque du Soleil now. It's one of the biggest company in the world in entertainment. So he says, "Hey, let's go see." I know the guy who works there, who's in charge of the difference. If like right now, like a tour with Celine, but all those big top show that you see with Cirque du Soleil, the average is 72 trucks. A show
Wow.
that you see in your city with a big top, the yellow and blue top, that's
Yes.
72 trucks that moves all the time. So anyway, I go to the production tent, and I introduce myself, and I say, and the guy knows he's been in business in Quebec. He knows who I am. He knows I don't know a lot, but he's very organized. He's one of, like I said, we're still friends like 30 years later. And he says, "Why should I hire you?" It's like, how many trucks do you have? Well, I need this, I need this. Well, I know people that have 1,000 trucks. Back then I had maybe like, maybe a dozen trucks and I would rent the rest. So tell me why, I should give you my job. This to move those, critical equipment. Well, I said, the good thing is I don't have a lot of work. So you're going to be my most important client, and I'm going to be here the 3 or 5 days that you need me nonstop. I will be here, work doing the job. And I said, hopefully, I'll learn from you how you want to do it. And that's the key sometimes is don't be afraid to ask the person, I want to learn what you do so I can be better at it. And I've used, so it's a little bit of humility sometimes will go a long way with a new customer. And I did that with Cirque. And he said, well, okay, I like your approach, your honesty. He says, here's the deal. The guy that's supposed to do the show was supposed to call me, today, to finalize the deal. If he doesn't call me by 5 o'clock, you got the deal. The guy that never called.
Oh,
And I
wow.
was there. I showed up. Talk about a cold call. People say cold call. I showed up, but the other guy, he didn't do shows. He had 1,000 trucks. He did food. He did everything. Cirque, for him, 70 loads in a week meant nothing to that company. It meant everything to me. So I've been doing Cirque for 30 years now. Celine stopped touring. Cirque toured for 30 years on one call. So I work every show in Vegas for Cirque, like I say. And then again, it was local. Like it was a little bit of luck and coincidence that all those amazing talent were all around me. I could have been in LA, I could have been in New York, which were the hub of music back then. But there was something about Montreal that at that time there was a lot of creativity. And trucking is pretty boring but essential. And I was able to build a team of people with those talent. But then Cirque went to Vegas. Celine became world. We even have I didn't mention that to you, but we have an office in Nashville now too. So it became at one point. So now we have U.S. driver, Canadian driver. We're the only company that with two offices in the two country. So it became again the demand. Nashville is booming in not only in country music but in music and production. They're building a new place called Rock Nashville, north of Nashville. It's going to be one of the most amazing creative area in the country. So that's there's a lot you have to adapt to your customer because Solotech. Some of my customer moved to Nashville. You have to be aware of where the industry is moving. And right now, Nashville is a big hub in the music world.
Share with us a bit of the complexity behind the logistics of supporting these concerts. What does it take to move a major tour from one city to another?
Well, the key when you have a tour, the key word is a tour, which means there's going to be a calendar. The key for our company is the calendar. Okay, because you mentioned safety a little bit earlier today. When you drive in North America, you have 10 hours of service. Okay, a truck driver can drive 10 hours, then you have to, shut down or sleep. So every time there's a show, people, by the way, there's no two or three sets when you do a show. It's one set. When you do a tour, the average arena tour will be, let's say 20 trucks. We'll take an even number. Well, 20 trucks, you come in at 8 in the morning, you unload the trucks. Usually by noon, you're all done unloading the 20 trucks. You set up all day. 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock, you have sound check. 6:30, you open the door. 8 o'clock, opening act. 9 o'clock, the band. 11 o'clock, you pull at the last song. After 11 o'clock, sometimes there's what you call overtime for the crew. So the bands try to stop by 11 o'clock. And usually in 3 or 4 hours, everything is reloaded in the truck and you move on to the next city. There's area that, the distance is short. If you go from Boston to Providence, if you go from, anywhere from, you go from Atlanta to, let's say, Charlotte. So there's distance. Anything under 500 miles, usually we can do an overnight, which means we do a show that night and then the next day. Because of hours of service, we cannot, if you calculate an average of 50 miles per hour, I know trucks can go faster, but if you're driving in and out of a city, there'll be traffic.
Yes.
Even if you drive at night, there'll be traffic as you come in. So you do an average of 50 miles. So my biggest concern when I look at a tour is distance between each city. So the first thing I do is I calculate everything and see if there's a problem. Okay. And sometimes we'll have a travel day, which means there's a day off between two cities, which gives me a little bit more time because I leave at 2 o'clock in the morning. I could do 10 hours. I could sleep 8 and do another 10. So I could drive almost 900 miles on a travel day and be okay with it. Everything over that, there's a flag. That's where my flag comes in. Then I have to tell production, this is not happening, or we're going to need to fly team drivers, which means 2 drivers per truck, which just increases the cost because you need hotels, you need airfare, you need drive, it's doable, but then becomes very expensive for production. And production, like any business, they don't like to add costs if not necessary. But there's always availability of arena. So when a band goes on tour in the winter, well, we compete against basketball, we compete against hockey, we compete against college ball. So all those factors make an arena available. So sometimes we're like, we're in Chicago, we should play the next day in Detroit, but we can't because there's a hockey or a basketball game. So they send us to, let's say, Cleveland. And then what I call almost darts or ping pong.
Yeah.
So the first thing about a tour is logistics. Can we do it with one truck, one driver? Can we be efficient? You have the Northeast, that's really easy. And then once you're done east, you have to drive all the way west.
I'm willing to bet that over time, your company has done what I would call site surveys, that what's at the venue, if you'll be able to accommodate your trucks there, how to load them. And you've probably built these over time. Now you have your own proprietary repository of information. Is that correct?
It's correct, but you have to understand that there's a lot of pieces when there's a tour. So every artist they have their record company on one side, they have the production company on their side to do the touring. This is what we work. And those people will work with other people the Live Nation of the world that, sell tickets or book arenas. And it's always about availability. So it becomes a puzzle for them, and then whatever's available because they want to do on average, an artist will do 4 or 5 shows a week. That's the average in order to, it's a big investment. You go see a show, when you see the production, the stages and everything, it's millions of dollars investment. So you want to do shows in order to recoup that investment. Well, again, distance, availability are two of the big issues in our world,
How do
you
you
know?
how do you balance safety of your employees when it comes to one just driving on the road and you have that sort of mental exhaustion? Now we start factoring in weather.
Yeah.
How do you balance that against the demand to meet the expectations of your contract with your uh, entertainers?
It's probably the hardest thing is it's it's like you say, it's the fatigue of driving at night. Anybody who's worked night shift understand that it's not for everybody,
Hmm.
you know, because I would say, most of the world, work from, you start in the morning, you finish, late afternoon, you have dinner. When you're our part, the bus driver, because there's the trekking, there's also the bus, because the bus carries all the people, when you see all those nice tour bus. Um, so the toughest thing is not to drive 5 hours or 6 hours. It's really to have your body condition to, you finish the show. It shows at 11 o'clock. You have to sleep during the day. So in the beginning, the conversion of going from daytime, the humans always, most humans, they live during the day and they sleep at night. In rock and roll, we can't because we have to sleep during the day. We drive all night, and you finish like around noon, 11 o'clock, noon, which the end of your shift. So technically, you've been out for like 14 hours. You should be tired. You have to go to bed, but it's not always easy when the sun is like 80 degree and beautiful outside, and there's people, to shut your body. So that's the toughest part, is that to make sure that you can adapt your body to sleep, to be 100% sharp, to drive, to load the truck, because doing a show, there's an adrenaline when you do a show. And we're not even on stage. We're the backstage people, and there's a rush of when we finish loading, we give there's high five. It's like we finish something, and sometimes we try to push ourselves to do it faster and quicker. So if you do a load out the first show of the tour, you'll probably load out in 5 hours, and by the end of the tour, you'll do it in 3 hours. Well, that 3 hours might not mean a lot to most people because we save 2 hours, but the crew that has been working 18 hours all day, well, they get 2 more hours to sleep. So all those details, the efficiency in the crew of working together means a lot. And then if we quicker to go, which means we'll have more time to get to destination, which means if something happens, we have a buffer, another 2 hours of buffer, because trucks will break. It will snow. There will be there'll be accident on the road. An accident on the road delays us, and sometimes there's nothing you can do except take a detour. That just added an hour to your trip. This is life, and it's not if it's going to happen. It's when it does happen.
I,
And and when it happens, we train our people to do certain steps to make sure that everybody's on the same page.
Aside from the training that you give them, and not to get into the details of that, but more importantly, are there any particular mottos or guidance that you give your team that it trickles on down for them to adhere to? So, in a particular situation, as an example, so with many like police departments, to serve and to protect.
Yeah.
We had former U.S. Marine Corps General Mattis told the troops, "Do no harm." Is there any particular guidance that you give to your own people? If you don't remember anything else, remember
Yeah.
this.
Well, there's the queen. The queen. I'm sure everybody's heard. The show must go on. Okay. So, but at the end, I would add almost at any cost. You know, fix the problem. What's the problem? People sometimes are worried about. man, that's going to be expensive. Like if I have to, I will tow a truck 200 miles to make the show, and then I'll worry about the money after. Why? Because it becomes, you've got 15,000 people that bought their ticket, and whether it's like last year was the Taylor Swift event or whatever show, whoever, if it's your daughter, your son, your wife, it doesn't matter. Sometimes that person comes to your show, like your town, once every 5 years or so, and sometimes more than that. This is a special event. So we become part of, music, you're selling a dream, you're selling, like, that 2 hours or 3 hours of show, that's a very special moment. So for us to deliver that, you know, the last thing we want is, you don't want, and that does happen sometimes, you don't want to have the PA tell the crowd, "Oh, we're sorry tonight, the show's been canceled because blah, blah, blah." They never say exactly what, but sometimes it could be trucking. It could be trucking. So everything we live for, like, because truck will break and winter will happen and there'll be accident on the road, but we do everything we can to make sure that the show was not canceled because of trekking. Safety is always, like I said, I'm not saying to do anything illegal, but like I said, if I have to use a tow truck and pay whatever amount of money
Yes.
to bring the venue, you don't even ask how much. You have to do it.
Yes.
That's part of that business is, you can say, well, my truck broke down, I'll be there tomorrow. You hear that in most industry in trucking. And you might get a little $50 penalty, maybe more sometime with all the big chains and all that, because they work on the supply chain and all that. I don't even have a contract that says, in my contract with the band, it's like, I know I have to get it there. And it's never going to be my truck broke down. Sometimes we'll do a relay. So and that's the culture that you're saying earlier. This is when we tell people when they start training. And it's fun because I've got some of my lead drivers been with me over 30 years, and they pass on that culture that, what we do is more than delivering from A to B. We bring something special to the people in the stands.
You said two things here. One, you bring something special, but to me, more importantly, when you talked about some of your drivers being with you for so long, 30 years, retention. How do you build trust among your personnel, from those that are working alongside you at the higher echelon of leading the truck and roll down to your drivers, that you retain individuals for this long? How do you pull that off?
Well, it's first, some of those were there in the beginning with me. So like they kind of build a company. There's a, like I said, first you have to have a little passion for that industry. It's, people think it's all party. It's not. Because when there's a show, we're in the truck and then the minute it ends, we load and we go. So it's not glamorous, but it's part of something very special. And sometimes it's funny to call it a tour. The military calls it a tour also. And I always found it interesting that military and music both call what they do a tour. Well, they both go on the road for a long time. Okay. And they both, when they come back, the people that they went on tour with becomes very special to them. So you have to have, like I said, the thing about truck and roll or the music industry is I took a job that is at the base very individual, very lonely. A truck driver, if he drives from A to B, whether it's West Coast, any job, like, he does his 10 hours a day, usually pretty much decides the time he gets up. And he decides what time he's going to eat and the shower. And he's got a delivery time that's on, you say, okay, I got to be there, but he can do whatever he wants to get there. Not the music. The lead driver becomes your chief. And he tells you what time you're going to get up, what time you're going to eat, what time you're going to take a shower with. So it's almost taking the military aspect that the teams becomes more important than individual. The show is more, the mission, the show becomes more important than you. So why would you become a truck driver to work as a team? It does not make sense. But if if you're a team person, and I was in sports all my life, and I work in moving, moving is a team. You need your number two to load the furniture. You can load a fridge by yourself. So it work as a team is fun. To do office move, we used to be 90 kids moving furniture up and down the building downtown. You load, if you never seem to load a show, you've got like 100 people unloading and loading the trucks. It's a military operation. It's beautiful when it's well done. And if you feel that, if you like the team, if you like, even though trucking is a very solitary job, it can be the most amazing team effort. And that's what that's the people I was looking for. I was looking for team players that want to be truck driver, and it's tough. That want to go on tour for 6 weeks or 6 months. But those people you find the lifestyle it's really tough. We have a lot of people will stop because they want to see their kids. They say, I want to. It's the best job in the world, but I miss my kids too much. And a little bit, like I said, the contrast with military. You watch military, it's hard on the family. It's not glamorous. People will leave sometime and they'll come back. Like we have an open, like I said, it's a very unique, like I said, the show is the mission. The show is the mission. To make it at 8 o'clock in the morning, to load out, it's such an adrenaline drug when it goes well. It's an amazing. I mean, there's nothing, if you deliver a load of 24 pallet to a warehouse, sometimes they won't even let you in the warehouse. They open the door, the forklift, get the 24 pallet, they sign your bill, go. Sometimes you don't even have a conversation. We live like, we're a unit. We're like, somebody makes a mistake, we're as strong as, if the guy cannot back up the truck, and a lot of drivers have issues backing up, we don't laugh at him. We try to help him because the better he gets, the better we get. So it's a very unique approach to something that's very lonely. It's like, if you're good, if I make you better, you're gonna make me better. And that's what, and it's not only truck and roll, it's every company that does that, whether it's staging or stage call or roadshow, there's 3 or 4 in the US, and we all know each other, we all respect each other. The beauty of our business, if their truck breaks down near me, they'll call me. My competitor will call me, and I will help him in a second to get his truck to destination, to make the show happen. And they have done in 30 years, they'll do the same for me. It's a very unique industry that your number one competitor will send a truck at 3 in the morning to help you so that the show makes it. I don't know if there's a lot of industry that do that to their competitors.
So are you attributing your success with your company that it comes to the front end when you're bringing on new people? You're looking for individuals who want to be part of something beyond themselves? Or what is this? Because you focused a lot on the team aspect, but one of the things I was asking again was, how do you create this culture? Now, what do you find you've personally done to create this culture that people feel they're included, they're part of a team, and they can trust one another?
Yeah, I think our job. So you've got HR that recruits driver, okay, and like any job, hopefully you've been driving for a while, or you just came out of very good school. We need, people that have been in school. We don't take the 2 week out of school truck driver. We want somebody that's been at least a year in truck driving school. So we want the best of the best. We do road tests. So we're very picky on having the best driver. So it's more like just a driver. We have guys, I've been driving for 25 years, this and this, but in about 2 minutes that he will never fit. So that's the challenge. You take a guy that's been driving for 25 years that cannot be taught anything, doesn't want to work as a team, but he can drive. But you're going to tell him, listen, you're going to go there, you're going to go to sleep. You'll never change. It's tough to change people after 25 years of doing a job. So sometimes we like the new one, because the new one, like they do in military, you don't come in military after 20 years of experience in another unit. You start from scratch, because you can say, hey, this is what the culture, this is what we believe. And then it becomes the unit. The unit, they take care of each other. The lead driver, the co-lead, everybody in the team, when you're new, will take you on, and they'll know after a couple of weeks, you know, the personality of the driver, the person will come out, and you'll know if that person is made for this. The beauty of what we have too is we have a lot of women. Like, one thing that people don't talk is there's trucking is one of the industry, probably with construction, that has a very low ratio. I think women in your 4 million driver, you said earlier, for sure there's less than 10% of
Yes.
those drivers are women, and it's probably closer to 5. We have 20% women driver. So that part of working as a team, the safety part, of always being a pack together, it becomes a very good, safe environment for women. So we attract a lot of women. And there's funny stories. Sometimes I remember, like, we just finished a tour last year with Pink. I think we had out of 50, we had something like 17 women on that tour. And we had 2 women that were co-leads. So I think rock and roll also is very open to, women being lead and women being drivers, that, some of the old fashioned male said, you're not as good, if you can drive, you can drive. So it's fun to see that, the world is changing a little bit, and music is attracting a lot of women to drive, because it's a very family fun environment. The unit, you're not alone. There's always somebody that is there to help you, and it's fun. It's fun to be part of something that's changing the world a little bit.
Do you find that also your demographics among your drivers and your personnel have changed in terms of people's ethnic backgrounds over the last 30 years?
For sure. Yeah, of course there's, I mean, I would say the demographic of, if you go back 40 years when I started, it was, most drivers were male, a lot of white male, of course, that is changing more and more. First, there's a shift also, like the baby boomer that used to drive, our generation are retiring. And there was a time that, the men work and the women was at home, and she raised a kid and you brought the money, and trucking was a big part of that. Well, the world has changed. And it's tougher also to say, okay, I'm going to be gone for 6 months. You stay home with the kids. I'll be back. I'll send you a check. So there's a lot of changes that are happening also in society that makes trucking tougher and tougher. There's a lot of, the Indian community is very family oriented. And when we tell them, listen, you're going to be gone for 4 months, they say, no, I can't. I don't want to be out far from my family for 4 months. So when family is important to you, so some culture, the family is so important that they will not go on tour, because, it's more important for them to be with their family on the weekend than to rock and roll with Mick Jagger. But it's okay. Once you know that,
Yes.
But they're amazing drivers. They could drive Monday, Friday, they get their job, but they don't fit with us. So like I said, it's sometimes it's cultural, sometimes it's family. It's tough. It's really tough to, it's the toughest thing is to find, like HR, the business grew, there's more demand, and it's tougher to find people that are going to go on the road. We changed. One of the first things we did, like in every trucking world, you get paid by the hour, you get paid by the mile. So we pay them by the week. So don't worry about, you're going to know exactly how much you're going to make with you. So we changed that like 30, 40 years ago, because, you're on the road. Sometimes you're sitting for 2 days. So we changed that approach of paying by the week. So you get, their salary is better. You get better pay. Usually the band will get you catering. So the band feeds you, you get fixed salary. There's a lot of plus, but the hard part is to be away from your family for so long.
Can you reflect on, so let's take the name of your company, Truck and Roll, and
Yeah.
I'll make a twist on that, decision making in motion, so to say.
Yeah.
Can you share an example of a split second decision that someone in your company had to make that, nearly saved or lost a production?
Uh, I would say it's there's always demand. It's always communication with production. So production will come, um, and you have to have your lead that communicate with them. Save, like I said earlier, save is question of communication. Okay, here's how it works. So the truck will break down. Truck breakdown. Okay, and there's when you have 20 trucks, rigging is the first one in, last one out. So you need that. You cannot start a show without that. If you don't have rigging to hold everything,
Yeah.
so if the rigging truck breaks, the lead driver. So the most important thing is when everybody's together, we're driving at night, whether it's a CB or phone, whatever they use nowadays. Um, you have to communicate the minute it happens. The chain of command. I'm coming back to my tour, the chain of command. Your lead needs to know what happened. You'll say, what truck do you have? Where are you? Okay. So, and then you'll decide, okay, where we are, and you'll say, okay, everybody stop. You will tell almost everybody stop. You'll call everybody stop. We have a shutdown. It's the rigging truck. If the rigging truck doesn't get there, the first one is going to mess up the show. You can push a couple hours. You have a couple hours of room, but you don't have that much. So what he did is one of the last truck to go in is the merch truck, the t-shirt truck. The t-shirt truck doesn't have to be there before 6 o'clock, really, because nobody is buying a t-shirt before 6:30. So what he did, he told the t-shirt guy, you stop, you unhook, you're going to pull the truck that's broke, you're going to pull under the rigging, you're going to take rigging, and you're going to stay on the side of the road. The guy on the side of the road is broken, is going to stay with the t-shirt truck. And that just gave us 4 hours of room to fix the problem.
Okay.
That's one example that I've seen is you have to know every truck, the number, who are you? So you're assigned to your load. What you have, you're the rigging guy, you're the lighting guy, you're the sound guy, you're the stage guy. What do you have on? And the lead driver in his head knows exactly the order of going in, going out, and he can make split second decision when the truck breaks down, so that there's no delay the next day. Sometimes it doesn't work. Sometimes it's a small tour and it's only one truck or two trucks and there's no backup. So then it becomes communication. You need to, sometime very hard, you need to call the big boss, the production manager at 4 o'clock in the morning. You wake him up. He's been up for 18 hours. Is sorry, truck broke down. It's better to be honest and let your customer know what's going on. So when he gets there, he can rearrange his day knowing that truck is not coming in. Because there's nothing worse in life than being on a loading dock with so many people and not knowing what is going on. That is the worst thing you can do in our industry, is not communicate when you're in trouble, because that will get you in bigger trouble.
Well, key word there, communicate. And I have
Yep.
found talking to all my guests, and then from my own personal experiences, communication is the main ingredient for success or failure. Who are you communicating with? What are you communicating? When? And then at the end of the day, you could have everything just right, but you can lose your message in the delivery.
Mm-hmm.
And I once had a conversation with someone about that when he was having difficulty with someone on his team. And I said, it's all about your delivery. I mean, what you're saying is right. Your timing's right. You're talking to the right person, but you got to change the delivery if you want the message to get through. Then it shifts to the other individual. Speaking of communication, and you taking your experiences and trying to deliver that in public education, share with us what's inspired you to participate in these sort of educational endeavors at Concordia, and also how you're able to translate trucking to students who might actually not have any interest in logistics. How do you make it real for them?
Well, I think the usually the fun thing is I tell them all about my mistakes because people
Yeah,
love love the good story of, man, that was tough. That day was tough, and it's like I said, I start usually with the story with the family business, the how my life would have changed in so many ways if the accountant would have met me, understood me, communication. But it's at so many levels, whether it's accounting or lawyer, it's like, what's more important? Is it the individual or is it the company? And that's why I bring some time to when I I lecture in family business and entrepreneurship, but I did some coaching also for case competition, which I really like. So I do coaching. You have business case, and you have a family that you have the dad is retiring. He's got two kids. He's got the son that's been working there for 10 years, that's got a high school diploma. You've got the daughter that went to school, that's got an MBA. The dad's retiring. Who's the next president? I love those cases. Cases like that for me are like that. So I did that, and I learned a lot by doing that, and that's why I did lectures after I became a coach. But sometimes I like the debate part. I like to tell my stories of all the mistakes that I've made, whether it was, with communication with my dad. Um, you know, he, I always say, I, you always get hurt with the people that are close to you that you trust the most. You never get hurt by people you don't trust. You don't
true.
trust them. But I've had two of my employees try to start a business, take 10 of my employees, and you learn from that. You learn from that. And I tell them stories that, then I get COVID story. We shut down for 2 years. So I could tell them what it is to have 125 trucks on the road on March 11, 2020. And in 24 hours, everything shut down. And you never know if you're going to, we were shut down for almost 2 years. I mean, that was a challenge of a lifetime to survive that, and then when he came back with, like a vengeance, because everybody wanted to go on the road at the same time,
Yeah,
which was possible because I had lost 75% of my crew because good people were finding job, and I had the best people, and I could not keep them because I had no revenue. So, if you do this for 30 years, um, you get good stories. You gotta get some fun ones. You get some, but the bad ones are the one that are juicier. The thing that you know uh, makes you humble. That, yeah, we all make mistake. How do you recover for them? That's what I teach them. Sometimes is we're all gonna make mistake, but find something that's fun. Have a good team. Surround yourself with great people that you love work. I'm really close to my customer. They trust me. I never lie to them. If you don't, if you're honest with your customer, they'll stick with you in hard times, even when you make a mistake. But just be honest, but telling them, what happened. And same thing with your employee. Employee will make mistake. Just make sure they don't make the same mistake again. That's what I've been telling my crew forever. It's like we all gonna make mistake. Just be honest. Let me know what happened. Let me know where did I fail you in not teaching you that, and I take that, and then I become better. That's the key for me. Is mistakes is always an opportunity to get better. I always use it as a teaching tool instead of managing and tell people this you did that. No, okay, what happened? Why? How did you? When I said that, what did you understand? You said that earlier. Communication, huh? I could tell you something, but you heard me. But what I've learned throughout the years is to say, repeat to me what I just told you. What did you understand when I said that? And that, as you get older, you you want to make sure when you have a project that everybody's on the same page as you, and they understood what the message was. And because that, again, if you if communication is good, there's usually no problem, but usually problems are created through communication. And how do we get better at that? Is you learn from the mistake. And the rest of the budget part, the driving part, all that, together. It's, again, it's, you deal with a lot of people. We work probably over almost, I would say, 50 to 100 tours a year. So you get a lot of different people with different needs, with different way of working. So you also have to adapt to your customer, but by keeping the same idea of, we have to be 8 o'clock show day, we have to be there no matter what. And at the end, if that part they remember, and we always say, okay, load in is at 8, which means you have to be there at 7. Because if you're there at 8, you're late.
Yes.
So it's all stuff like that that you repeat and you repeat and you make sure that everybody. And I think the toughest thing that's happening now also is people, we used to talk more on the phone, and now everything's like on Teams, everything is text. I'm afraid a little bit of that part of the new technology. I think talking to somebody, you can feel if they're understanding or not. I
True.
think you're missing something. It's more clear, it's more perfect by email and by text or by Teams, but you're missing the vibe of the feel of the other person. And I'm a little worried about, the next generation not having the feel of the tone of the other person. The person's tired or in distress or is having a bad day. Sometimes just the tone of your text doesn't always connect the reality.
That's true, and I think what you're raising, it's the efficiency of the communication, vice the effectiveness, right? I mean, I can communicate a lot of sort of task out or request via email or text, within 30 minutes to multiple individuals. But then again, it's going to take me more time if I speak to each individual. And I think the
Yeah.
important thing is identifying, when is an appropriate time to actually do the actual talk. Vice, I can just do this in a written communication, or when I
Yeah.
need to do both, perhaps.
Mm.
I think also when you were talking about mistakes, I wanted to ask if part of what you're communicating to your folks and others, it's don't ever see a mistake necessarily as a failure. This is a moment where you're receiving information, and you need to see it as that, not as a personal failure. It's a moment to learn from, and you just keep moving on. And when you were talking before about the accountant and sort of the mistakes he had made in communicating with you, the mistakes you had made in how you were communicating to your father, trying to buy out the company. So at that time, it seemed like a setback, right? But the irony is, had you actually communicated effectively with your father, or the accountant with you, truck and roll never would have been born. And who
Never.
knows? Yeah. So sometimes I think we have to see even those moments where something doesn't work out. It's not necessarily the end of the world, right?
It was not, and like I said, I knew after a few years that I could run a company. I was doing it with my dad early on. You know, my dad gave me the tools, so I was lucky enough to have parents who had a business that gave me the opportunity to do that, and I could do it. So very young, I knew I could, I could do this. I had fun doing it. Uh, but again, when you're an entrepreneur, you want things your way, and that's the transition is tough. The transition just for me. So I'm on my exit now. I'm planning my exit. Well, I'll tell you, Maurice, the exit is as tough as the entry in business because there's no class. The exit 101 of your business class at school, I didn't see it yet. So you have to learn that on your own. And like, do you sell 100%? Do you find your replacement? There's a lot of equity fund in the world that if you have a good business that's profitable, they're going to go knock knock. But most of them are going to say, okay, now you're going to stay for 5 years and double my money. Okay, what part of I'm retiring goes with I'm staying for 5 years to double your money? It's true. I mean, it's the playbook of private equity. And listen, for 30 years, I never thought I'd give it a thought of my exit of private equity. And that's what I'm doing now. So my new life also is now I'm teaching or coaching a lot of entrepreneur how to exit. So there's two things in my life: how to pretty much, pretty much start your business and how to exit. And I tell you, the exit is harder than the entry
Hmm.
because it's your baby. When you start, it's not your baby. You have nothing. You have a name, you have an idea, not really attached to it. But if you work 40 years with your baby and your children don't want it, and what I've learned during COVID, because it's like, okay, I need to replace. It's easy to sell the company, find somebody who's going to do my job, who can, you know, do what I do and lead a company for the next 10, 20 years. That was tougher than selling the company.
Speaking of COVID, I wanted to ask you. So I'm going to deviate slightly back to 9/11, when we
Yeah,
had the terrorist attacks in the United States.
yeah,
And then, within days, weeks after that, the airline industry, across the board, except for, I think, Southwest Airlines here in the States. But every airline was then asking, I'll euphemistically say, a handout. This is going to ruin us.
yeah,
Um, and at that time, I was actually still working as an attorney. I hadn't joined the government yet. But I was thinking, okay, I'm not part of a big corporation, but something tells me, a single event doesn't break you. This might be the straw that broke the camel's back, but no, you've probably created an entire environment or situation where now this is going to break you.
yeah,
And then I hear your experience of going 2 years of when things were shut down and being able to survive through that.
yeah.
So, would you agree with that? There's really not one singular event that will crush a business. Uh,
Okay, the what it all depends. Like, it for me, a lot of people that were struggling is people that are in debt, like the leverage. If everything you own, if you have big debt and you have no revenue coming in, it's like, and it's not illegal to have a debt. It's
yeah,
not, you want, you're growing, you're creating job, you're paying taxes, you're bringing a lot of money to the big pool of the system. Okay, but your plan was, you buy those planes, are expensive. You buy trucks are expensive. I was lucky enough to have very little debt. A lot of the trucks I had were rental with Ryder and Penske and all that. Some of the trucks I own, what happened during COVID is I was able to make deal with all my, you know, people and say, hey, I'm going to pay you everything I owe you until after the first show. The question was, Ghislain, when's the first show? There's not even a vaccine yet. People get a little weird when it comes to money. I understand you have a problem. Can you fix my money problem? And like, listen, I don't know when they're going to come out with the vaccine. So it became a reverse sell. I had to sell you that I will pay you everything that I owe you, but we need to work together. Otherwise, I'm going bankrupt and I'm going to give you your truck. And because the economy came back 6 months later, I was able to re-engineer myself. I was doing like transportation in other industry, making zero money because people look at you as like, okay, it's like they would tell me, oh, your driver are too expensive. Okay, so I'm gonna get penalized because I pay my driver too much. And yes, they're the best in the world. They do what they do because they're the best in the world. So to deliver like, food at, a store and all that was something that, people loved us because we're always on time. We were never late. People were freaking out in the other industries like these guys are always on time. Yes, they never break down. No, we break down. We just fix it before we tell you. So that became fun, and we did that. So 6 months we were shut down totally. 18 months we survived, which means we paid our bill, and then it came back with a vengeance. So whether it's Southwest, until you know the person's debt and agreement, and this is where people need to talk. It says, I need help for what? What do you need help for? You don't give people money. Like the government was offering us back then in Canada to give money to the employee until, because of COVID. Well, I had zero revenue. Like a lot of people took a hit during COVID. It was 100% for us. And what I didn't do shows, I would do trade shows. I thought I was diversified because I had hundreds of customers. But my other customer did trade shows in Las Vegas. Everything I did was event, and the world of event stopped. So it was tough. I survived because my debt was very low. I was a very conservative businessman, even though I live in a crazy rock and roll world. I survived because of that. I negotiated a lot with banks, with suppliers. Nobody lost a cent because after 25 years, I think my word was good enough because there was, forget the contract now, that doesn't exist. It's COVID.
Yes.
Happened when, maybe never happen again like it happened last time. So again, relationship, be there. I had a relationship with all those people. They knew who I was. Um, I had never missed payment in 25 years. I told them, listen, and everybody knew it was going to come back. We just didn't know when. And that was the tough part. So whether it's 9/11, whether it's COVID, each business is unique because of their cash flow, their situation with their, you know, obligation.
Yes.
Some people will need help from the government, whether it's a loan, whether it's, I don't know. But I think every situation needs to be addressed depending on the industry and their debt in their situation. So there's no one answer to what you're asking.
I was going to ask what misconceptions you find people have about trucking, but I'd rather transpose that to entrepreneurship and running a
Yeah.
business. What misconceptions do you find people have about this, and particularly the students that you interact with? Misconceptions about running a business, being entrepreneurs.
Well, I think the I think what people have to understand is when you're an entrepreneur, there's going to be sacrifice. Sacrifice is the balance between your family, yourself, and your business. Who goes in first? And I teach. I'm teaching new business now. I do some coaching, and sometimes I hear, "Well, you don't understand. I have a kid. I cannot work on the weekend." I'm like, "Wow. If you want to be an entrepreneur, it's going to be a 7 day a week job. It's not the Monday to Friday job. You gotta have to balance your life, your kid, your partner, and everything that you have to make hard decision. So that's for me the misconception is you're on top of the food chain. It's glamorous and you get all the profit and everything that comes with it. People don't I Most people I know don't go in business to because they're chasing money. I think if you do what you love and you're passionate about what you love, the money will come later. But if you start your business like money, 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 I think you're doing it the wrong way. I would go more into finance, go in place that the money is good. If you're smart, go in a place that the money is going to be there no matter what. And to be an entrepreneur it's a lot of sacrifice for your family, for your time, for yourself. It's very hard to sometimes put your business in front of your family. People don't understand that. And sometimes when the business needs you, it pushes everything out. It'll push your holiday out. It will push, your kid's birthday. It will put your kid's birth, being there like they do in professional sports. Um, when you commit to something, it's like I said, it has to be a balance, and the journey is a lot of fun, but there's more sacrifice when you're an entrepreneur than people imagine.
Well, it's something I'm hearing in this, and it's beyond the private sector. So even someone, who has a sincere interest in serving, say, in the government
Yeah.
or in politics. I mean, as much as we critique our politicians, but someone who's actually uh, they found what they want to do, they're going to have to turn it into, as you say, a 7 day a week thing. If they're really going to make the most of what they found they enjoy and that they're good at, again, whether it's being a lawyer, a special agent, a trucking industry CEO, you're going to have to put the time into it, sacrifice, and some people may share in that vision, and some people may not, and then you got to choose. Okay, what do I do at this point? Do I continue on, or do I give up this part of myself? Right. And speaking of passion, you hear this cliche, follow your passion. But I've heard other ways of looking at that, and that is you have to be careful about, you know, finding or following your passion because everything at some point is going to be frustrating. Even the thing you initially are attracted to. And what would you suggest to folks in terms of finding their passion or realizing what they're good at and continuing to do that, and you actually become passionate about that.
So imagine if you find passion in what you're good at. That's even better.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what happened to me. I love music. I've always loved music from the time I was young. You know, trucking, it's not glamour. I mean, you don't go to college to become a truck driver or, like blah blah blah, like what it was 40 years ago. So, but it was kind of two things that, like music. I love music ever since I
Yes.
was young. I always have a collection of album. I listen to music all the time, but in my mind, everybody did what I did. I didn't understand that I was really like above the average of when it came to music. Listening to music, understanding every genre of music, whether it's opera or disco or rock and roll. I listened to everything, and I did not even realize when I was working at the Civic Center that I was in the music business. It's funny because I did not realize it. I was just loading trucks with a bunch of guys. I did not, because I was 18 years old. I did not know. It was just a job. But when I started doing, at the beginning was a lot of fun because I was at every show because I was driving trucks myself and I was at the show. So then I became part of it, and a lot of people, it's like there was so many people that could have done what I've started. Like
Yes.
it was there. Everybody knew it should be done. And in the beginning, I asked two guys to partner with me, like two of my friends. I said, "Come on, are you mad? Why would I leave my job? Why would I leave my job with my guaranteed salary every week and that's what people don't understand is the first couple of years, you pay everything, you get paid last.
Mm.
And like I said, I'm lucky that, been with, my wife 35 years, like her dad was military. I think that there's so many little details. If my wife's dad would not have been 32 years Navy, I think that would have been tougher at home. Maybe I would not have succeeded because she was used to having her dad gone for 6 months. And when I went away for 3 weeks, it was like, well, it's okay. Take care of the kids. You do this. So the unit at home was strong because of her upbringing. Nobody wanted. I remember risk. I play poker too. I like risk. I like probability, and I was having fun. And the money came later. The first couple of years were like there was no money, but trucking was there, music was there. There was a need. I was having fun, and like I said, selling changed everything.
Yeah.
And then it grew, it grew, it grew. And then my people became, like I said, I was able. I always say, surround yourself with people that are good at what you're not. I think that was probably what I did best in my business. Is I was able to find people that were detail oriented, that are safety oriented, that all those little details. I'm not a detail guy. I'm more like a tornado, and I need people behind me to pick up the pieces to make it again. So, what I tell people is like, don't be afraid to surround yourself with people that are better and smarter than you. I could sell. That's what I could do. I could sell people, and I like quality. But when you have great people, this is where the company can grow. When you surround yourself with people that are better than you in things that you're not good at, and you admit to it. Don't be afraid to admit what you're not good at.
Speaking of people, your company, uh, the industry, companies like yours, what do you think they're going to have to change, if anything, to remain relevant as we're moving forward? And then also the impact of electric vehicles on the
Mhm.
industry and governments beginning to impose on industry to adopt this technology. Um, what's the future?
Well, I've been working. Listen, you cannot be in trucking and not be aware of what's happening. If I could have electric trucks tomorrow, I would do it. I've got kids, I've got grandkids. If I can save my planet tomorrow and, it makes sense, I would do it in a second. But right now, it's not there. The technology is not there. You know, to want to power the whole world. I mean, we don't have the electricity. We don't have the structure to do the dreams of our politician to say, hey, by 2030, 35, 40, let's all be trucking electric. There's so much missing.
Yes.
There's a lot of great ideas, you know. I remember like in a couple of years ago, I did a tour with Neil Young, Willie Nelson, you know, oh, let's go biodiesel. And we smell like we're driving French fry truck, you know, it smelled like, but you know, it was insane. And then if you went to Buffalo in the fall and it was around 35 degrees, it would freeze.
Oh
It would freeze
God.
and the truck would stop, you know, and then we get like the truck company would say, well, you're not insured because our, you know, the book, the 500 page book, you know, it says you cannot do that. So what do? You know, do you follow your warranty or do you save the planet? Because you're so, and then there was nitrogen, Nikolai, a guy out of Salt Lake City. Listen, I've looked at it all. I've looked at it all. I care about it. Uh, we're not there yet. Like I wish we could say we're gonna go electric, and you know, like I said, because let's say I have so many hours, we go back to safety, we go back to hours, we go back to efficiency. Listen, if I drive 6 hours and the truck's shut down for 10, it's like that's it. There's no show. So it's something's not work. There's something not working. The equation of entertainment, environment, laws, geography, you put all that together and something doesn't add up for the next, I would say, the 10 years. When they say 10 years, this is the goal. You know, we know here, Quebec is a big, you know, electric. We have more water and power than, you know, anywhere in America. And if we electrified all the trucks, there would not be enough power to do it. And we have we have power, we have electricity. So it's like at one point there's going to be a lot of people that have to talk to each other as far as, you know, manufacturing and, you know, energy, government and business to say, hey, how can we make our planet better, greener? The trucks now are much more clean than they were 15 years ago.
Yes.
Remember, you used to go on the highway, there was a black smoke coming out. It was
Yeah.
like, you know, you don't see that. The air that comes out of the truck is sometimes cleaner than it goes in with all the technology and investment that the trucking company, but nobody talks about that, you know? So let's talk about the real stuff, which is, you know, what do we need to make our planet safer for our kids and our grandkids? Trucking will still be trucking. It's, you know, like you said earlier, there's 4 million trucks or driver in the US. It's a big chunk of, you know, the environment, and there's a lot of fuel, and there's not electric trucks now. They're just local delivery. Every city has local delivery trucks, you know. You can see that being the FedEx trucks, you know, all the local delivery trucks, 100%. I think that's where the future is going. Long distance, when they say 10 years, let's do that. California, like I said, I'm very aware of what's happening in California. It's a great idea. I wish I could believe that it's doable.
Well, it sounds like in terms of trucking and government regulators, whether at the state or national levels, they could actually learn something from, say, the cheese industry in Wisconsin. One of my previous guests, and Wisconsin has a very unique environment wherein it's this effective collaborative relationship among the cheese industry, between the cheese industry and the state regulators, where it's actually supportive of one another. And it sounds like this is what needs to occur, because right now what's occurring is instead it's a confrontational relationship. No, don't impose this on us. And then the others, no, you need to keep the environment green. What does success mean to you today? Looking back, and you've talked about, you know, exit. You know, for you, again, what does success mean, and what do you want someone who's starting a business or starting whatever it is they're doing, young, old? What would you like to share from your definition of success?
I think success is, you know, when you're all said and done, that the people you work with are still, you're still in contact with them. I've worked with Michael Bublé's managers, become one of my friends. I'm not involved anymore, less and less in the business, but the people that I've encountered throughout the years, even the employees, I go to the office once in a while and somebody, my older guys are there, and we're like, we're still like, when we look at each other, we still, like kids, remember, like we remember the fun part. And that's it. It's when you're all said and done and you see somebody that you work with, you're happy to see that person. You remember the good times. Um, because life goes quick. 40 years goes quick. And if you're lucky enough to last 40 years and healthy enough, and those relationship for me that I've built, that I still have once I'm done with the work, means that it was more than just trucking or a show. But it's about the people that you encounter. And sometimes I'm very happy that I took the time to get to know those people. That when you're done with your job and you're done, selling your company, uh, the relationship with your employees, with your customer, with your suppliers, all that, the human part of it, I think for me is still, I get more out of my relationship and friendship that I've built throughout this bubble of business than, like how much money the company would make or how many trucks I had, all that. That's doesn't matter at the end when you're all said and done. So for me, it's the relationship and what we did together, what we accomplished, like working on a big tour. Like I've had people push me to do things I thought I could never do.
Hmm.
But at the end, it's because they believe in me and they knew I could do it, and I was afraid to fail them, fail for the company. But when we're said and done, like we look at each other, man, we did this. It's not how many tickets we sold, how many trucks. Is pushing each other to be better is what I remember of working 40 years in rock and roll.
I like that, true leadership, getting people to accomplish things they didn't think they could actually
Yeah.
achieve. Um, a cliche question in terms of reflection is always, if you could go back and do something different, what would you do? I'm not going to ask that. I'm going to ask you, what is something you looking back on, you are, damn, I'm happy I did that.
Um, it was, for me, it was it's a mix. I don't think there's one thing for me. It's it's like I said, I don't think my career was built on one thing. It was a lot of moments
True.
that made who there was a moment like for me investing in our building 25 years ago, which nobody did back then. It was a hole in the wall that today, it's funny. I think it was that is, I think I get your answer is there's a moment in life that it's going to set up for growth.
Yes.
Okay. So how do you set up yourself for growth? And I say that again, if you're in a small place or shop or warehouse, and you can do so many widgets, it's very comfortable. If tomorrow you say, hey, I'm going to build 100,000 square foot warehouse, but I don't have the demand for it. What should come first, the demand or the product? And I think there was a time that I was able to, you know, go to a bigger place to have more trucks. If you buy a building or a yard and you have 20 trucks, but the place can take 100, what do you think is going to happen? And the other thing I did is about 10 years ago, I started a division which what's called brokerage. Brokerage means, so I had a band, I think it was Lady Gaga at the time. Lady Gaga had 30 some trucks. I had only 20 available, had to subcontract 10. For like 20 years, I did not subcontract. I said, if I don't train you, if you're not part of mine, if you don't have my culture, my, you know, brainwash technique to make you better, you cannot work for me. I gave up on that rule of, I control the quality. I'm going to sit, I'm going to give that to my lead and he's going to train them as we go. That was for 20 years, I stuck to that rule. And when I let that go, then I let the control go and let my people train them, we tripled our company in the next 5 years. So to real estate, like you're in a box, and then let go control over, demand, because the demand, there's no way that could have been done. When I say to do stuff,
Yes.
it happened with Gaga, it happened with Rammstein. When I did Rammstein, I said, listen, I have no trucks. The guy said, no problem. He called everybody else. Nobody had trucks. He comes back to me and he said, we're gonna do this. We're gonna succeed or fail together. That was his manager. And the German are very like organized, and I'm like, this is gonna be the biggest flop of my career. But and it was an amazing success because I had found a right leader to do it. So it's it's the failure that stops you. It's the risk of doing something you don't want to do that takes you to the next level. These are the two things: the real estate and letting quality go. My plan, like laying my vision. I say, I control everything. I control. The reason I'm so good is we control the labor. The minute I let that go, yeah, maybe there was some mistakes, but it took the company to another level.
As we come here to the end, so to say, reflecting favorite tour memory that always gives you a smile. And I'm sure there are many.
There's many, but the big one was I was invited by U2 in Scotland. I had designed a trailer. Long story short, I designed trailers with floors that go up and down. And U2's manager heard about it, invited me to go to Scotland, and I was underneath the stage. There was the 360 tour for the Spider tour that U2 did in 2010. And I signed a contract underneath the stage while The Edge was practicing guitar on top of me. And I'm like, wow, I can't believe they're paying me to do this. One of my favorite band, I'm below the stage with their manager, and he's practicing in the afternoon. And I signed a contract. I had 30 trucks on the tour for a year after that. There's moments like that. It's like, wow, I'm still a fan. You have to be a fan of what you do. You have to be a fan. The other one that I always remember is the first tour I did with the Backstreet Boys. If you're older, you remember the Backstreet Boys.
Oh, wow.
In 97, right after Celine, they called us. And I was backstage. And the noise that the girls made when it went through your body, I felt, okay, this was the Beatles felt like. You hear all those, McCartney's around on his own tour right now. And, you can't hear anything because he had 40,000 screaming women at the Beatles. But that to have 20,000 teenage girls screaming at the Backstreet Boys and it went through your body, I'm like, wow, you can't make this up. So those two things for me, the Backstreet Boys sound and U2 under the stage, these two are the fun part that I can remember right now.
Well, Mr. Arsenault, thank you tremendously for sharing your story, your observations, and lessons learned. A special shout out to all those around the world out on the road ensuring delivery of goods. To all our Canadian neighbors, it's great having you all up there to the north. If not, Truck and Roll probably wouldn't have been born. To our listeners, thank you for joining us on Brungart Law's Lanyat, where we provide a little extra perspective because the devil's always in the details. Please join us again next time and invite others to follow along. Give us your feedback and suggestions via the link. Mr. Arsenault, again, gratitude.
Thanks for having me. It was a lot of fun.